Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. You're listening on a very, very wonderful Christmas morning. I hope all of you had a great Christmas Eve and you're enjoying today's gift opening and celebrations. And many of you are also in several of the days of Hanukkah, and we wish you a very happy holiday as well. Got a very special program for you today, one that is going to kind of revisit something that we've all had the exposure to in the past. We're going to call it the Dickens process, the Christmas Carol. But we're going to look at the Dickens process in a very different way. We want to give you the opportunity to see what's taken place over many Christmases past and today's Christmas and Christmases to come. And the holiday season is the time when, we kind of celebrate too much, and we want to make sure that our celebrations don't drag us down as the year comes on. So to do that, I have a very, very special guest in studio with me, someone who is going to take you by the hand, and we're going to walk through past Christmases. Don't laugh, Sue. Good morning. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
We're going to talk about the Christmas Carol, but in a very different way.
Yes.
So as we enjoy the day and we go through, and hopefully we won't make everybody crazy so they can enjoy the food that they're going to put on the table and all the things that they're getting their fingers into. We're fortunate. I'm very fortunate because I live in a house that, even though that this time of the year we cheat a little bit, our cheat is nothing compared to what so many other people do. And what we want to do is offer you an insight. We want to offer you that there are ways, if you will, there are ways of celebrating, but making sure that your celebration is not something that's going to take you down the tubes. We put on, over the holiday season, starting from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve, something in the neighborhood of, 15 pounds or so?
5 to 15 pounds is the average, and actually we need to expand it back to Halloween, because now Halloween has become a month-long celebration until Thanksgiving, and so we can add another 5 to 10 on top of the 15 from Christmas.
And we all wonder why it comes January. We make these resolutions, and we've got to get all this weight off, and we don't know why it takes place.
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from? But it started, when you talk about empty calories, and you talk about sugars and all the candies and the sweets and the cakes and all those things that we get this time of the year, it's mind-boggling. And when you think about the amount of sugar per person, I think there was, most recently, I should say about 10 pounds less than this, that the average consumption of sugar per person per year right now is like 170 pounds.
That's right. And I think 70 of them come between Halloween and Christmas.
Yeah, really? And if you wonder, and you say, well, I don't do that, well, go start looking at the packaged foods and start looking at the things that you put into your body. It's not rocket science to figure out that you might be doing something that is not supportive to your body.
Exactly.
So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get you to understand that you can celebrate, but we also want you to have an understanding of what really is taking place. What happens to your body? Why it ends up at the place of minimally sluggishness, or I don't feel good, God forbid the other degenerative diseases. So our gift to you on this holiday season is going to be one of awareness. We're going to open your eyes today. We're going to make it easier. So this afternoon, when you go to reach for whatever it is that you normally reach for, there's an option. There's an alternative, and we're going to kind of touch on those just a little bit of time that we have. So having started that process and putting you in the position, let's talk about Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas to come. Over a period of years, Sue, you have Christmas past, right?
Right.
So why is Christmas past? What did we do? What did we see? How did we feel? What were the things that we did nutritionally, environmentally in Christmas past?
Well, to start with, Christmas past probably started ending around the turn of the 1900s. Because up until that point, anything that we consumed was a solid whole food. It was not manufactured, it was not processed, it was not chemicalized, it was not preserved. People ate real food. The vegetables were things that they were home canned at that point of the year for most people by the women in the kitchen, and they came out of the gardens that they grew them in the backyard. They had free-ranging animals. A lot of the Christmas turkeys, geese, and duck were products of good hunting skills by the men in the family. as opposed to going to a store where they had them already processed in a mass-produced factory-style organization like we tend to get now. The beginning of the additives, the very first one that I'm aware of, was in 1911 when Crisco was introduced as an alternative to lard and butter. Not that lard and butter are great for your health, but your body knows exactly what to do with those because they're natural fats. They occur in the diet. They occur in the foods that we would eat that were unprocessed.
But Crisco, not so much.
Your body knew what to do with that. Crisco was manufactured. It was modified, and they used chemicals and metals, particularly nickel, in order to produce it. Now, yes, one of the advantages is it could sit on the shelf of the pantry for a year and not go bad and not be rancid. And so that was its big calling card, and it tended to make a different consistency in the baked goods and the products that they used. But we have now since learned that Crisco is not one of our better things to be using.
You mean a little free radical formation?
Just a little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm. So Christmas past was represented by homegrown, home-processed foods, by free-ranging animal products, by home-baked goods with real ingredients, generally minimally processed flours. They used a lot of whole grain flour. Very little white flour was available up until about the turn of the 1900s. The sugar and the salt were locked in the pantry because they were
condiments.
They were condiments, and they were hard to get, and they were expensive. And the cook of the house would not allow it to be just sitting around at random for anybody to help themselves. So things were done very sparingly. A lot of fruits were used, a lot of vegetables, a lot of natural meats, and whole grains. Root vegetables were a big one because those things were still alive and growing in back gardens or they were in the cold storage. So in other words, people ate whole food in the years of Christmas past.
So not running down to the processed food store and grabbing something, opening the package, pop in their mouth, or put it in the microwave.
Exactly.
Which changes the genetic structure anyway, as we know. And if you don't think so, do your own research because it does.
Right.
And we spend time. I grew up with whole, healthy foods. People ask me, well, did you ever eat dairy? I said, yeah, we ate dairy. We went to the farm. We got our own dairy from the farm. My grandmother used to come back in with these big canisters, and it was raw milk, and we made our own cheeses and so forth. And obviously, I'm first-generation American, but nevertheless, we grew our things, and we preserved our own foods. And I grew up very strong and healthy. I was rarely ill. I didn't have the problems that a lot of my contemporaries did. Mm-hmm. And, subsequently as an adult and after many years of practice, I have a system that can withstand things that a lot of people can't.
Right. And that was the other thing with the dairy, which you just pointed out. Dating myself a bit, but I grew up in a period of time where there was a milkman. And the milk he delivered...
to the house.
He delivered it every day to the house, and the milk was not homogenized, which meant very top of the bottles contained natural cream, which was poured off and used for whipping cream or whatever you might want, coffee or whatever, and the rest was unhomogenized milk, which meant that the fat structure of the milk was one that was properly used by your body. The homogenization spins out those fat molecules to such a tiny amount and spreads it through the milk to the point that it's very difficult for your body to not process too much fat.
Well, you know my position on dairy products anyway. If it's not raw, you shouldn't put it in your body because the pasteurization process anyway destroys the destroys the covalent bond of the calcium.
Right.
And for calcium in milk to be able to transport adequately into the system, it has to be covalent. It has to have the ability to attach to receptor sites in the tissue. Once you heat milk, it changes to an ionic form, makes it extremely difficult to transport in the system. So what does it do? It lays in the bloodstream. Hopefully your body can process it out. It doesn't do it very rapidly, and it forms a focus of what we call atherosclerotic plaquing, hardening of the arteries due to calcium and fat attaching to it.
Right. Plus, the milk of those days not being processed, didn't contain antibiotics like penicillin. The dairy cattle were grazed in pastures and not given grains, particularly in large quantities, so the milk itself had a different fat composition than what the milk does today. And it was just generally a healthier thing. You could actually sour your own milk to make your own buttermilk.
My grandma used to do it all the time.
By leaving the container on the windowsill. And it would pick up the natural bacteria, which would sour it and turn it into natural buttermilk.
Try that now, and
you can't do it now.
You die.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a neurological degenerative process that'll take place, and you're not going to feel so hot on the way out.
And if you look at any really old recipes from your mothers, your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers, where they called for sour milk, those recipes were actually done where the milk was set out the day before and allowed to spoil.
My grandmother used to make these great dishes at Christmas time, and they were all done in-house. And you look at them today, and if we ate them today, I couldn't eat them today. I'd get sick because the ingredients that she made, they were organic, free-range eggs. She'd go out back of the house and get them. She didn't. She went to the farm. She would use dairy products that were raw milk. She would make her own foods and cheeses and the like, and your body could metabolize them.
Right.
When we deal with nutrition today, we deal with it from the aspect of how much of this stuff is manipulated, added to, preserved, where our bodies no longer have the capacity to process. Breads. We don't eat, wheat is not wheat anymore. It doesn't have any of the consistencies of what it used to be years ago. I used to make bread with my grandmother every Saturday morning, 10-pound increments, because that's all she knew how to do. And I was the muscle behind it. I used to knead the dough, and she made great bread and great pizzas and so forth, and I didn't have the reactions.
No.
Today, I'm so highly gluten sensitive, if I have a piece of bread, I blow up like the Christmas turkey that we're going to eat this afternoon.
Most of our grains, unfortunately, have been genetically modified, and that causes a problem as well, because we are the test animals for genetic modification. They really don't have long-term studies on what happens when people consume genetically modified foods. So we are the test cases. That's part of the reason why people used to be able to handle some things and they can't now. That's part of the reason why you have so many problems with gluten sensitivities and celiac disease showing up. Partly it's we have better techniques to diagnose it, but partly it's because it's more prevalent because of the changes in the grain structures that we have. The thing is, you might make the argument, well, people are still healthier and they live longer now than they did at the turn of the 1900s, and that's very true. But the quality of the food that they had, it may not have been the variety that we have available, but the quality of the food, the way it was raised, processed, and grown, was much better.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live, and Merry Christmas to all of you on this Christmas day. Hopefully you're enjoying the day, and to many of you, a very happy Hanukkah. It's a great season. I love it when the seasons overlap. It gives us a moment to reflect about how important each and every one of us are, and we're talking about the Christmas Carol, the Dickens process. And I stole the term, by the way, from a very dear friend, Tony Robbins, who is part of one of his keynote programs, coins the last day, the Dickens process, and it's very profound. But we're going to do it from a food source. We're going to talk about where we've been as we have and how foods were, and we're going to talk a little bit about what foods are today and some of the effects. And to do that, Sue is with me in studio. Again, we're having some fun, Sue.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're not going to spoil anybody's day.
We probably already have.
We probably have. But you know what? It's our job. Because
yes, it is.
Because we're going to go back and we're going to enjoy a wonderful afternoon brunch with our family, and we're going to have a great time, and our food's good for the most part. And yeah, it is. I mean, you cooked it, so I can't complain. It's always good stuff, and it's always very healthy things too. So when I want to eat well, I stay home.
Okay. That's a good thing.
So we talked about Christmas past, and we're talking about all the good things that we used to have, the things I grew up with, how we prepared our foods, and then we began to transition. We began to transition into things that aren't so healthy. We said that, refined sugars today make up about 170 pounds per person per year, and that's not including the artificial sugars and all the other things, and the dyes and the preservatives and the colorings and the chemistries, the antibiotics and the hormones, and it goes on and on and on and on. and we still think it's the same food.
You mean like the 39 ingredients it takes to make Twinkies?
Yeah, something like that.
And Twinkies have a shelf life of about, 10 years?
And Ho-Hos and so forth. So, I mean, really,
so
39 ingredients.
We have come to Christmas present, which is the time where we have mass-produced food. We have less and less and less families eating from their backyard gardens. We have less and less farmers available around that you can go and buy fresh produce and things, although that seems to be changing now as people's awareness of quality of food is improving. But we still, as a country, consume anywhere from 8 to 10 pounds of additives. Now, we're not talking anything about the sugars now. We are talking about all the conditioners, the preservatives.
The chemistry set.
The chemistry set, the things that enhance the flavor of foods that are less than edible quality as far as I'm concerned. 8 to 10 pounds a year. That's the size of a big bag of potatoes. Take a look at it.
And we wonder, and it's amazing to me that physicians will tell their patients that it's just food, it's not a problem, you're still going to get the nutrients and the vitamins, your body's going to get rid of what it doesn't need, and it's like
no,
bunk.
It doesn't. It builds in the body because these are chemicals that no matter who you are, your body was never designed to process and to utilize them as a food substance because they're not foods, they're chemistries. Artificial sweeteners, aspartame potassium or potassium aspartame, aspartame or NutraSweet, saccharin. Primary artificial sweeteners, highly chemicalized, that have absolutely no nutritional value to the body, but yet
and
trigger...
And you promise there's nothing like that this afternoon, right?
That's, no way.
Thank you.
And the thing is that they trigger, though, the same responses in the body as if you were eating sugar. So you really don't, other than not actually putting calories in, you still are going to get the same response from your insulin, from your pancreas, as you would if you were consuming sugar.
I've told my patients that forever, that anything that the mouth perceives as sweet triggers neurologically the entire reaction.
It triggers that message. And so what happens is you gain weight on artificial sweeteners.
It's amazing to me. Physicians will tell their patients, well, do this because it lowers your glycemic impact. And I said, once it gets...
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It acts the same way. You're going to still put on the same amount of weight. You're still going to do the things biochemically that are necessary to process sugar.
You're just going to drive your blood sugars too low and get cravings.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. We're talking about the Christmas Carol. Merry Christmas to all of you, and to many of you, a Happy Hanukkah. We are talking about things that we've built up to over a period of Christmas past, and we're moving them now into Christmas present, and we will move them into Christmas future and show you what the outcome is for many of these things. Christmas present. Why are so many of us putting on that 15 pounds of body fat? Why are we so sluggish? Why aren't we feeling good? Why can't we get over the problems that seem to be a day-to-day challenge for so many of us? Well, to help me do that is Sue. And we're here talking about Christmas of all times.
And currently, Christmas present.
Yes, it is. Christmas
the
present.
The foods of Christmas present.
And what a present it is, and some of the things that we give to ourselves and how we make our bodies kind of come apart.
Well, and it's also one of the reasons why people are so sick in January and February. We usually put it off to the weather, but it's actually, I think, a good part of it is that we've just torn our systems to pieces over the course of October, November, December with everything that we're doing, all the stuff that we consume and all the things that we give ourselves license to eat. That has just completely worn our systems to a frazzle. And then we have funny weather in January and February, and it's gray and cold.
And no vitamin D.
And there's no vitamin D, and people start getting sick. And those are the two worst months for flus and every bug that's around.
Even Pasteur, and we've said it many times on the program in our presentations, is that he's the father of antibiotic therapy for microorganisms, and he said on his deathbed that he made a mistake, that it wasn't it didn't have anything to do with the bug. It had to do with the environment, the terrain the bug was able to live in.
Exactly.
If your environment is good, the bug can't set up housekeeping.
Well, I got news for you. People, those bugs are around us all the time.
And
they don't just come in January and start infecting us. They've been here all year long.
No. And 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now, you compound 1 teaspoon times 170 pounds per year. 1 teaspoon of sugar decreases the white blood cell capacity to work, your protection, your defense mechanism, by 12% for 8 hours.
That's right.
And
1 teaspoon.
That's
4 grams of sugar.
That's right. Multiply that times 170 pounds that you're consuming every year, and some of you a whole lot more than that, and you wonder why your immune system doesn't work.
Your average fruited yogurt has 22 to 28 grams of sugar. That's anywhere from... Help me with my math here.
It's
5 to 7.
Christmas. I am not supposed to think on Christmas.
5 to 7 teaspoons of sugar in a small carton of fruited yogurt.
I'm not required to think.
Okay, so anyway, we talked about the artificial sweeteners and some of the downsides of those. Besides being toxic chemicals, that there's some significant concerns now, more so even than before, about the incidence for bladder cancers, the incidence for other forms of cancer, the effects that they have on children and their activity levels, their ability to concentrate, the problem in that they create more likelihood of bladder infections. In other words, they have a lot of other things happening to you that originally they did not find when they were doing the studies. And then once they've said that something is safe, they're very reticent to say it's not safe anymore, because that makes them look bad.
It's like many other things. You know, we talk about, and I'm not striking out at the dentist, but I'm striking out at what their profession has used for many years in mercury fillings. And we know mercury fillings, for example, have as part of their base 50%, or silver fillings, 50% mercury. And most dentists now have been exposed to the fact that these things are dangerous neurologically to the body and start breaking things down. And many dentists have switched, and they're going to amalgams and composites much more safely than putting mercury in your mouth, because mercury is a biohazard. But here's the deal. Here's why your physician or the dental association as a whole will not say, listen, this stuff is devastating, because they were a supporter of it for so many years. Can you imagine the lawsuits if they finally admitted that, in fact, it was a problem? It was a mistake. Yeah. And we can talk about inoculants and so forth. We won't get into that. That's a story for another program. But
that's not Christmas present.
That's not Christmas present. I'm sorry. Okay. we're talking about that thing.
You're going off on a tangent here.
I am. I do that.
Okay. So I'm going to draw you back here.
Okay.
We talked about the artificial sweeteners. We've bashed them. I think people got the message on that one. Dyes and food colorings. You know, caramel coloring is one of those most concentrated, used coloring things that we have. They are in baked goods. They are in colas. They're in pre-cooked meats, gravy mixes, Worcestershire sauce, chocolate-flavored products, liquors, syrups, wine, beer. It is the most widely used dye available.
It's a cancer former, too, isn't it?
It is, and it's made by heating sugars with ammonium compounds. It contains contaminants and has been shown by the U.S. National Toxicology Program to cause cancer in male and female mice. Now, granted, when they do these studies, they usually give them much higher doses than what most people would consider normal. But if you have someone who consumes 6 colas a day, and that's not an unusual thing, I see it all the time.
Not unusual. And not only 6 colas, but people come in and tell me that they drink a couple liters a day.
Oh, yeah. And so if you just take that amount of caramel coloring alone, they're getting this huge dose of a potentially cancer-causing problem.
Plus the phosphoric acid, plus the sugar, and if it's artificial sweeteners, then we've got another cancer form, and not only that, but we've got a degenerative neurological element as well.
But then there's one little caveat to that, and that is that oftentimes the substances they use to create these colorings and dyes have contaminants in them themselves that are carcinogenic. So not only is the substance that turns the dye into a usable product is a problem, but the contaminants of the ingredients used to make that product.
It's called the processing.
The processing, yeah. So it's even worse. Yellow number 5 and 6, 2 really, really bad colorings for most all of us. But they have already identified that it causes an allergy-like hypersensitivity reaction, especially in aspirin-sensitive people.
And how many people eat M&Ms?
And it's in medications, it's in cosmetics, it is in toothpaste, it is in foods, candies, everything you can imagine. So how many people are allergic to aspirin and aspirin-like substances? We're talking adults as well as children. And then we've got the kids who are going to be much more likely to be affected by some of these additives than grown-ups because their little bodies are smaller and they're in high metabolic levels.
So here's a question, Sue, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you the question. How many of our patients and how many people that are listening to us are taking that 81 milligram aspirin on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
So they're asking, I try to get them off the aspirin for other reasons. It helps prevent cancer. If you take it with this, it's supposed to do all kinds of good things. If you're taking an aspirin every day, number one, it has major problems relative to competitiveness with different receptor sites in your body so you can actually repair your joints. So you can repair knees and shoulders and hips and so forth. And if you're taking that aspirin, you're going to go into a phase of degenerative disease. However, to our question now, does it have this stuff in it?
The aspirin may have these colorings in it.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. Along with your Advil and your Motrins and everything else, because those colors are generally, I think, orange and blue and pink and red.
And they're all NSAIDs.
And all of your prescription medications have artificial colors in them.
And by the way, guys, you know that little blue pill that they try to sell you? Guess what?
Artificial colors.
It's got artificial colors, too.
And the interesting thing
Chinese herbs are better.
Who really needs a pretty pill if they have to take it? I mean, what's wrong with white?
It's called marketing.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Interesting another little fact about colors. Blue number 2. It's in beverages and candy. It is processed from a product of petroleum, much of which is refined near China's Yellow River Delta. And this is one of the most toxic, polluted areas of the world.
Well, they call it Yellow River for a reason, don't they?
Apparently so. So you know
just a thought.
You know those blue M&Ms and the blue colorings that you see in foods and so forth? That's where it's coming from. Okay, so anyway, we got the idea. Artificial sugars, not such a great idea. Artificial colors, even worse of an idea. Now we're on to preservatives and additives. Who said food should be able to sit on a shelf for 7 to 12 months.
Here's an interesting situation. You have patients that come in and you look at their dietary patterns and they say, I have a salad here and I have this. Until you really get down and ask them, where do they get this stuff from? Where are they eating their lunches? Example, if you go to a fast food place like Wendy's, they have a salad bar. And they have, this bowl of salad, this lettuce all chopped up. It's iceberg lettuce. And first of all, iceberg lettuce has 99% nothing in it, and it has some residuals of arsenic and those types of nasty additives. However, here's the deal. Have you ever noticed that when you look at these salad bowls, there's never a brown piece of lettuce in it anywhere? I mean, it doesn't exist. That they might get a little limpy because the moisture's come out of it. And when I first came to Washington, D.C. area a lot of years ago, I used to think that these were afternoon jobs for kids, that they took a knife and, they chopped them up in these pretty little squares and dropped them in there, and they got paid minimum wage and not so much. The salad that you see, the iceberg lettuce that's in there, comes generally in bags. And it's already pre-cut up, and they break the bags and they put it there, and it gets limp. And then when it wilts at night, they sprinkle a little water on it, pop it in the cooler, it fluffs back up, add some more. But here's the deal. That lettuce has a longer shelf life than you do. They use chemical sprays, they use radiation to maintain it.
But they don't use sulfites.
They don't.
Have to, by law, put a label.
That's right.
It's been made with sulfites.
That's right. But
they use all kinds of other ones.
Things. That's right. And it can stay there forever. You leave it out, it's not. I mean, even talking about McDonald's hamburgers, we saw, some of the documentaries, not just, Super Size Me, but other things as well. The stuff that's in that is amazing.
Yeah. Food should not last. Okay, that's the bottom line. If it's got enough stuff to preserve it from now until next year, it's probably going to do the same thing inside of you. And I actually had, years ago when I was in grad school, I became the proud owner of a little kitty cat. And I took it to the vet. for it to be checked out. And the first thing the vet said is, whatever you do, don't give that cat those moist meats in the plastic bags, because if you do, that preservative that's keeping the meat from spoiling in the plastic bag will preserve your cat's stomach. Well, this was a long time ago.
Here's an even a better one. Back in my home,
and that's pretty smart.
in Jamestown, my hometown, I have a friend who is an undertaker. And he said, he's been around in the business for a lot of years, and he said that today, opposed to 50 years ago, they don't have to use as much embalming fluid.
No, because we're preserving ourselves.
We're preserved already. So think about it. Think about what we're putting in our bodies.
We're mummifying ourselves.
Yes, we are. The Egyptians didn't have anything over us.
Yes, they did. They used natural herbs.
True.
Anyway, so the preservatives that we are using in our foods are not of value to us. They're usually chemically based from petroleum sources in many cases, and they are known carcinogenics. It's just they're acceptable for use because you have to eat a huge amount before it has that impact. Well, I'm not sure who decides what a allowable amount would be, but the general populace, if they're not paying attention to what they're putting in their mouths, are getting more than what would be a safe and considered usable level, and they get themselves into some real problems. And we're seeing this more and more and more with behavior, with neurological problems, strange syndromes that have
we're into Christmas to come.
Yeah.
And it's really the end product of what we're looking forward to, if you will, our own health Armageddon.
Right.
We're destroying people. The destruction of people's health and bodies are rapidly coming. I've said for years, we don't have to nuke anybody. All we have to do is export our fast foods.
That's right.
And based on that, we'll win.
Well, and it's interesting. One of my favorite mentors, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who's top-notch biochemist in this country.
Brilliant man. Brilliant
man, and probably one of the first men to really bring functional medicine into a functional state within this country as a legitimate type of care. He made the statement that people used to consider the substance was safe if it didn't kill the lab animal. Now we're finding that it may be not safe because it has an impact at cellular and metabolic functions that we didn't know about before. So that's where these additives and problems cause so much difficulty.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. We are talking about Christmas, and hopefully we didn't destroy your Christmas if you've been listening since the beginning of the program. I want to remind you that Thermography Centers of Fairfax is an ongoing sponsor of Dr. Tom Roselle Live. And Thermography Centers, through our Fairfax office, is going to give you an opportunity in January, from now through the end of January, to receive a full-body thermographic imaging. Remember, the beginning stages of tumor formation and cancers start with the development of blood supply, and thermography shows that blood supply 5 to 8 years before it actually turns into a mass. Normal, $475. It's yours for $400. Go online at thermographycenters.com or call 703-943-7248. That's 703-943-7248. Their gift to you during this holiday season. Sue, we're talking about what's happening, what's going to happen, what's taking place, why we have the cancer, why we have the degenerative disease, why we have all the pathologies that we show up.
Why do we have all these weird syndromes
that
nobody knows what's wrong with
including
people?
Our teeth falling out of our head.
Well, sometimes we know what that causes.
Yes, indeed.
Come from. So we went from Christmas past, which was whole foods, close to nature, to Christmas present, which is chemicalized, commercialized, processed, shelf lives for long, like you say, longer than the person's going to live, to Christmas future. And that can go two directions. The one way is if you continue Christmas present, you will be a sick person. You will have more and more problems with heart, cancer, weird syndromes, cognitive problems, dementias, and so forth. If you choose to repeat more closely the Christmas past using whole foods, kind of the way they look when they come off the farm, now after they've come out of the factory, using clean, as much as possible, free-ranging animals and animal products, your Christmas future could be a very healthy and vibrant, long life, but a long functional life. And the choice is up to you. It takes a little more time to do the old-time way of cooking, but the illnesses that you get if you don't do them also take a long time.
They take a long time, and they take away from the time that you should have in this planet. It's an unfortunate situation that where we're headed with our health is predictable based on what we're doing today and not supporting ourselves the way we should support ourselves.
That's right.
Our energy pathways, how we look, our mental states, our capacity to produce, all of those things are determined upon what it is that we consume. Garbage in, garbage out, to coin an old phrase.
And this information is available everywhere.
We're trying to put you into a place. And if you'd like to re-listen to this program, by the way, you can go to roseleradio.com, and it'll be there for your re-listening pleasure. Let people know that we're here every Sunday at 12 o'clock on WMAL, giving you the most up-to-date information. Next week, we have a very special program. It will be New Year's Day. And we're going to talk about what you can do to plan the next phase of your life, how to get out of the drudge, the stages of change. We're going to talk about pre-contemplation and how to prepare, how to take action, how to maintain it, how to get it. Your host next week will be my daughter, Erin Poe Roselle, and her husband, Dr. Leonard Poe. We'll see you then. We'll see you after that.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. See you later. Bye.